thought I knew her. Her name was Nadia, and for years, I trusted her in ways that left no room for doubt. We shared a life that seemed perfect from the outside, a tidy apartment, quiet routines, shared laughter that felt effortless. I believed in her completely, believing that the bond we had forged would never be broken. But I was wrong. Nadia had been hiding a secret of betrayal so calculated that it could have destroyed me if I hadn't seen it coming. The first sign was subtle. A message preview flashed on her phone, a name I didn't recognize, a phrase that didn't belong to any friend I knew. My heart sank, but I didn't react immediately. I told myself it was a mistake, a misdirected message, something explainable. But intuition is hard to ignore. I started paying closer attention to her behavior. The way she hid her phone, the sudden errands that never seemed to have a reason, the small, anxious glances when I walked into a room everything began to add up. I realized she thought she could betray me and get away with it. The thought made my blood run cold, but I refused to act impulsively. Anger would be obvious. Confrontation too soon would give her the chance to manipulate, to charm her way out of the consequences. I needed evidence, solid, undeniable proof that would leave no room for her excuses. So I began documenting everything. Dates, times, phone calls, receipts, messages. I kept a hidden record of her deceit, cataloging the lies she thought were invisible. While I collected evidence, I rebuilt myself. I started exercising in the mornings, reconnected with old friends, and threw myself into work projects I had neglected. I became someone strong, calm, and unshakable, the kind of person she could no longer control with her manipulations. For weeks, I observed her quietly. She smiled at me, laughed at jokes, hugged me, and maintained the illusion of normalcy, unaware that I knew she had assumed her deception would continue unnoticed, that her charm and our shared routines would be enough to mask the truth. But I let her arrogance work against her. Confidence can be a dangerous thing for someone hiding a lie. It blinds them to the fact that even the smallest details can be traced. The day came when I decided it was time to act. I wanted the revelation to be private, precise, and irreversible. I invited her to dinner at home, cooking her favorite meal and setting the table with care. The apartment smelled familiar, comforting, the perfect contrast to the storm that was about to unfold. When she arrived, radiant and confident as ever, I slid the folder across the table. Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she tried to cover it with a laugh. I opened it and began reading aloud, not accusations, not anger, just plain facts, dates, messages, phone calls, and receipts that painted a picture she could not deny. Her composure cracked almost immediately. Panic flickered in her eyes, then anger, then desperation. She tried to charm her way out, to explain, to deflect blame. But the evidence was unassailable. Each fact, each small detail, was a nail in the coffin of her deception. She realized, finally, that the person she had thought she could manipulate had been patient, careful, and deliberate. I had turned her lies into proof, and proof into the tool of her reckoning. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply watched as she struggled with the reality she had created. Her pleas, her excuses, her rehearsed apologies, they were powerless against the ledger I had kept. The smile she had worn to hide her betrayal was gone, replaced by the raw vulnerability of someone caught in the act. The aftermath was subtle but devastating. I set boundaries she could not ignore. I withdrew the tolerance and complicity she had relied upon, reclaiming the emotional and physical spaces she had invaded with her lies. She tried to reach out, to charm, to plead, but I remained steadfast. Her attempts at manipulation no longer held sway. I had reclaimed my life, and with it, my dignity. Her friends and acquaintances began to notice the cracks. The life she had thought was insulated from consequence began to erode. Not because I broadcast her betrayal, but because she could no longer maintain the facade she had built. She had thought she could deceive me and escape unscathed, but she had miscalculated. The world, even in small ways, mirrored the truth I had laid bare. Months passed. I focused on rebuilding my life. I pursued passions I had set aside, strengthened relationships with people who mattered, and allowed myself to heal. The heartbreak that once threatened to consume me became a tool for growth. Betrayal, I realized, can be transformed into power. The moment I saw her deceit could have broken me, but instead, it forged me into someone more resilient, more aware, and more deliberate. The revenge I enacted was not cruel or vindictive in the traditional sense. I did not seek to humiliate her publicly or expose her to shame. My revenge was in reclaiming what she had attempted to steal: my trust, my peace, my sense of reality. She thought she could betray me and continue as though nothing had changed. She was wrong. The world she had built on my complicity had collapsed quietly, privately, and with no escape. In the end, I walked away not with malice, but with clarity. She had lied, she had betrayed, and she had misjudged me. I had loved deeply, been deceived thoroughly, and emerged stronger. The moment I saw her betrayal changed everything. It forced me to confront reality, reclaim my life, and assert control over my world. Now, whenever I look back on those months, I see them not as a period of loss, but as a crucible. Betrayal exposed the gaps in trust, patience tested my limits, and revenge taught me the power of calculated action. Nadia's lies could have destroyed me, but they didn't. Instead, they reminded me of something essential: that the true measure of strength is not in avoiding pain, but in responding to it with clarity, precision, and integrity. She thought she could betray me and get away with it. She was wrong.